able to
confirm, guys, you can see my screen.
Yes, I
From
can
this
see it.
side, yes.
Okay. So basically, Python is one of the best scripting languages that we use in machine learning, or whenever that we want to apply artificial intelligence. We can also make use of R, but Python has got more libraries and more functionality that makes it easier for us to use, whether we want to make some predictions or we want to just describe the data that we have so that it can also back up in our decision making. So why do we choose Python? Because Python, the reason number one, it has got a clean syntax, and that same code can run on different operating systems, either from your industries. Maybe you can use Windows, some use Apple, and Python can run on all those systems without any challenges. Then also the extensive use in first and third part libraries. Like I said, that Python has got so many libraries that makes our weeks easy when you are dealing with data. Then the other advantage of using, sorry guys, I'm sure you guys all have installed Anaconda and you're able to run some Jupyter Notebook. Is that correct? Anyone having issues? No. No. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
But what you are saying, I don't have an experience of it.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that most of us we are not coming from the computer science background, but I just want to make sure that with Mr. Chaka you have downloaded the Anaconda Studio.
Yeah, I've downloaded the program.
Okay. Can you also open the Jupyter Notebook part of the Anaconda Studio?
PyCharm.
Okay, you're using PyCharm, even it's still fine. With PyCharm, it's still okay. You can also still run the same code that I'm running on the PyCharm, still fine. But personally, I do prefer the Jupyter Notebook.
Oh, the Jupyter Notebook. Okay.
Yes, because one of the main reasons is that I'll be able to, let's say if my program that I've written has got some errors, I can debug line by line, like executing block by block, rather than in PyCharm, just write string of code. So sometimes
Yeah.
for clear visibility, but we can all achieve the same result. Yes. So guys, confirm we all have either PyCharm or Jupyter Notebook for us to continue. Because I want you guys to be typing some codes, then I'll be explaining what does it mean, how do we use them. Silence. I think silence means that everyone has got the notebook, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in programming, definitely what we usually work with, we work with some variables. A variable is just it's used to store a piece of information, and usually it is a name. You define, let's say for example, you want to store some data temporarily, or maybe whilst you're executing the programs, there's need for us to store some data that we'll be using whilst the program is running. But as soon as that program finishes executing, then we can terminate the program. So in Python, literally in each and every programming language, we use variables. So variables are more of like temporal storage of either a result or you want to assign something to it. So there are so many different ways that we can define variables. Did you guys print something using PyCharm with Ms. Chaga? Hello? Did you guys manage to write some simple codes with Ms. Chaga?
Yes, we did, sir.
All right. So from my understanding that everyone can also be able to, if want to print some certain text, just like a simple print statement, we are all able to do that, right? Hello? Do I have people in the house?
I'm not sure about the others, but personally, yes.
Okay, all fine. All right, it's fine. So I think maybe they can just catch up with the, because we are going to repeat some of the stuff whilst you're doing, so going through some basics. So so whenever we want to assign, like I said, that a variable is just more of like a temporal storage. Let's say we want to use, for example, in this case, I've got a variable called answer. Then this variable, I want it to store the value 42. So in Python, this is how we declare and assign. Okay. Hello. Okay. So in Python, like I said, that a variable is just the temporal location or a space where we can reserve to store our data temporarily whilst our program is executing, right? So in Python, this is how we declare a variable. So my variable, a variable should have a name. Then after having a name, then we can assign some certain values to the variable. So in this case, if you have got a variable called answer, then we have assigned 42, we have stored the value of 42 in this variable, right? So sorry for my pop-ups. So this variable has been stored we have stored 42 in the variable called answer, and this is an integer variable. This is an integer. So the good part that I love about Jupyter Notebook, it allows me to comment. In fact, most of the IDs, they allow you to comment. Then in Jupyter Notebook, you can have some headings. Then you can have the line comments. But using other IDs like PyCharm, they only allow you to have line comments. So we've declared our integer value, because this is the name, then this is the value. And in the same way, we also have defined another variable. It is Wednesday, then this is a true, and it is Thursday, a false. So this one, you say it's an integer. Now this one's this type of variable only accept two answers, whether true or false. So which means by default it becomes a Boolean. Right? Then we also have another variable. These are just different types of variables. If you take note that whenever we are declaring certain variable, we are assigning it a value. So in this case, we have also another variable called approx. Then we have assigned a value of 3.145. So by default, by having this extension, it becomes a floating number variable. It's now different from an integer, it's just a whole number. Then if you want to store something to do with floating digits or something else, the decimal commas, this is how we declare that type of variable. And also, we can also have a string as a type of variable. We give it as a name, then we assign the string to it. Did you see that? So from variables, you can store different types of data formats can be stored using variables. And if you want to print whatever that has been contained in that variable, if you check here, I've got my statements print answer and print pi approx. All right. From what from your first lecture, you guys said that you can you're able to print. So if you have stored a certain variable, now you want to output whatever that is in that variable. That's why you call the print function. Are we all together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So you find that whenever we are programming or whenever you are scripting in our daily lives or whenever we apply Python, we tend to use variables frequently. So these are just the basics. Where if we are now declaring variables, you know if this type of thing is this type of data, you use this type of variable. How do you declare this type of variable? How do you store this type of variable, etc. Okay. Then we also have in Python we have got more complicated data sets. The first one, what if we want to store maybe more than one variable? Remember we want to store more than one value. If you check all these variables that you've covered under this section, we are only storing single variables. Right? So if there's a situation where we've got more than one variable that we need to store, then in Python, we have got special data types that are also being allowed to store more than one value. For example, we've got this price we got called list. A list in Python is a certain type of a variable which allows us to store more than one value at a certain time. So if you want to declare a list, this is how you declare a list. It will be more form of like an array. We have got we give it a name, which is prices. Initial variables that you have declared, we just say prices equals to 10. So which means that prices is only holding the variable 10. But in this case, things have changed. Now prices can hold more than one actual value. In this case, it's holding 10, 20, 30, up to 50. So which means this variable called prices has got 5 values in it. As compared to the first one is only 1. Now this has got 5 values in it. And if you want to print, the contents of that variable, you just use the same function that you've used, print. Then you open the bracket, you specify the variable that you are going to print. This is now prices, but you have to note that for you to print something in a list, you need to use indexes. Like we have got positions. If you say print 0, then run this cell. Let's see. Right. You see that my first answer here is 10, right? Let me take off these so that you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so we come here, we say that we have got a list, right? And the list has got 10, 20, 30 as a variable. So if you want to print the first element or the first value in our list, we use this syntax, and it prices, then we specify the index is now the position of the value that we want. So if it's the first one, we just say we want to print element 0. If it's the second one, we want to print element number 1. Then if you run this code, it will print us 20, because 20 is the second element in our list. Triple test.
Yes, but the font is
Yes.
too small.
Oh, the font is too small. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Let me try to adjust. Confirm you can see clearly now.
Yes.
Okay. So I was explaining the list variable, where we are saying that we can have a variable that can hold more than one values and it. So if in this case, if you want now to print something from that list, you have to specify the position of what the something that you want. Like in this case, I've said print, then I put the name of the variable, which is prices. Then the location is denoted by the square brackets. Then you put the number inside. And always remember that Python, if you want to reference something in Python or in list or in tuples, you always start with index 0. Are we all together? So
Yes,
we
sir.
have got 0. 0 is the first one. Then number 1, it will be the second thing in that list. Okay, so there's also another technique in Python. If you want to print, maybe you're not sure the current position of the item that you're looking for. So you can specify, okay, anything after 1, I want to take from 1 going on forward. You want, let's say, for example, you want to take, you want to print all the elements in the, you want to print all the elements in the list, but all those elements in the list, you want them from either index 1 or index 2. All those results should be printed. Maybe you want to exclude the first one. So if you are slicing a certain list, sorry guys, yeah. I think Mr. Chaka is trying to contact me. Maybe he's thinking that maybe his network is down. So most probably he's assuming that everyone is down. So I just texted him. But okay. So in Python, we have got ways that we can slice our data. So for example, in this case, I've just say position 1, then I denote a full colon, then I didn't specify the second number. So which means that everything that is from index 1 up to the end of that list needs to be printed. If you check this, this is how we slice the data in Python. Are we all together? So let's say, for example, you want to slice from 1 maybe to the third element, you do the same. And so now we have taken position 1 and position 2, excluding the third one. So always remember that whenever you slice, the third, the upper limit of the slice is not included. It's always excluded. So if you check from here, we have from 1 and 2. Then the third one, it's excluded. If you want the third one, you have to put up to 4 so that we get the third one. So always remember that if you are slicing your data set, the upper value, it's not included in your slicing. So if you want to include it, you have to add another index on top. Are we all together?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So from there, these are just types of data types that we'll be dealing with in each and every day. So these are just getting you guys to get on track how to work with those data types, because you'll be working with them with the real data. But in this case, you're just demonstrating the syntax of those data types, how to slice, how to dice, or those data sets, right? Then we also have, this is another way, this way to define a list, and we can make an empty list, then we can add to that list. So we have created an empty list. For example, maybe from your program, if maybe a certain patient comes in, you want that patient to be added to the list. You don't have that patient initially at the moment, but maybe during your business hours, maybe you're a doctor or something, if a patient comes in, that patient needs to be added to the existing list, right? So you don't have to, you just define an empty string initially. Then if the patient comes in, then we append his name to the list. If the next patient comes, we also append to that list. So that in a case that you don't know how long your list is going to be, but all what you want is that as long as someone comes in, we are just adding to that list. We are just adding him to that list, right? So this is how we define an empty list. Then we have defined our empty list called colors. Now we want to add data to the list, because initially in this case, we have created a list, then we have assigned some variables to that list, right? But in this case, we've just created an empty list, and now we need to add values to that list. So the way you can use in Python, the syntax goes like, you specify the name of the list, then dot append. Then you put the value that you want to append in that list. Like for example, in this case, we have got colors. In colors, in this case, it's an empty list. Then we say, okay, in colors, can you append green? After appending green, can you also add blue? Can you also add red? Right? Are we all together?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is how we add, we append to an existing list. If you want to append, let's say, for example, we want to append to prices, right? We can just say prices dot append. Then we specify the number that you are going to append, let's say 56. Then after that, we say, okay, print prices, so that we want to check if whatever that you've added is now in the list. So if you check initially, our list of prices was ending at 56, and we have appended 56 into the list. And now 56 is now appearing in our list. Did you see that? So that's how we add data into our list. So for example, if you want to access a specific element in the list too, we have talked about this, where you want to access a certain element, you have to specify the index of that list. And notice here, the first element of the list index is always 0, not 1. But in other languages like Matplotlib, it's indexed from 1 going on forward. Hello? I'm Mr. I'm right. Yeah, we are teaching package. All right, no, it's fine. It's okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. Okay. Then, apart from list, we also have tuples. Is another data type, and tuples, they are similarly to the list, except one thing, that you cannot change them. After you've made a tuple, you cannot change it. Like remember from the previous, we are saying we can add variables to the list, right? So in a case, maybe you're dealing with some security issues, that you feel like tuple is the best data type to be applied on that. If we have defined it, you cannot change that. Then you can use a tuple. And a tuple is different from list. It can also house different data types. Like if you check, for example, the first one, we've been dealing with integers. Then the second data set, you have been dealing with strings. But as a tuple, we can combine both integers and strings without any challenges. Are we all together? And the same way we access tuples is the same way as we access the list. Are we all together? Hello, guys. Do you have any questions so far? Or someone that has been lost or left behind? Yeah. Hello, guys. Hello, guys. Do you have any questions?
So I would like clarity on the issue of appending a list.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay. So on appending the list, we say that we have defined our list, right?
Yes.
For example, this is our list. Then we want to add, we just discovered that maybe from our list, we don't know how, like I've given you example of a patient, right? You're a doctor or just a customer. The first customer comes in, then we add him to the register, right? Then the second customer comes in, we add him to the register. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Then, but you don't know who is going to come next after, let's say, for example, the last customer was Willie. You don't know who is going to come after Willie. But that person that is going to come, we need to add him either to the register or to the logbook, etc. Right?
Yes.
So we can use the list to append those customers, right? So we have defined our list as initially when we started the business day, maybe we have got an empty list just like this one. Let me create an empty list here. We have got an empty list called colors, right? So to check the contents of colors, we have to print colors. Right. Then you can see that this is an empty list because this is the result, right?
Yes.
Then we have got our first customer called Mr. Green. Mr. Green comes to our shop, then we need to append, we need to add Mr. Green to the list, right? So if you add Mr. Green to the list, now our list now has Mr. Green as our first customer, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Then after Mr. Green left, then we have another customer, maybe Mr. Yellow is now our second customer. We are still using the same list, but now we are now appending Mr. Yellow. So from our system, now so far, we have got two customers, Mr. Green and Mr. Yellow, right? And the list will go on and on. Whenever we are dealing with in the future, you don't have to write append Mr. Green, append Mr. Red, or Miss Red, etc. Right?
Yes.
You'll be using the loop functions. We explained that in the few hours or in the next few minutes. So you'll be looping through, like if a customer comes, you just automatically add, automatically add, automatically add, automatically add, until you've exhausted all the customers. So in basic terms, this is how we append or how we add new data to our list. Are we
Right.
all together? Is it
Yes.
now clear?
Yeah, now clear.
Okay, fine. So basically, these are the data types that we have in Python that we mostly work with. Then apart from that, we have said we have got different data types. We have defined different variables using different data types. Now we want to use those variables. Maybe we want to perform some calculations. We want to do a lot of stuff with those things, or maybe we want to further manipulate that those variables that you've stored. And for example, in this case, you can see that you have defined a variable called float, right? And we have assigned a value of 5.75. Then we have also added another variable called float2, and we have assigned it a variable of 2.5, right? So if you want to do some basic addition in Python, we just use the same the plus and the minus without any complications. So for example, the first one, we are saying, can you add float variable 1, which is called float, and float 2? So we're just adding and subtracting in multiplication and dividing. Triple test. So these are just basic mathematical functions that we can use with variables. Vanima, do you have any questions on those variables, on how to use those variables, or maybe just performing some basic algebra on the variables? So if you print this result, if the first one, we're adding variable 1 and 2, which is 7, and this becomes 8. So this is our first result. And we are subtracting variable float 1 minus float 2, we'll get 3.5. If you multiply, we get 12. If you subtract, we get 2.55. Are we all together? So these are just basic manipulation or just basic mathematics that we can do with Python. Do you have any questions on those variables? Hello? Guys, are you still there?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So to check as we are following, we're just going to do a simple exercise. I would like you guys to define a certain list with integers. Maybe just put 5 integers using your machines. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can we create let me just type in the comment section. Where is it now? Create a list with 5 integers and add. Create a list with 5 integers, append, add 46 to your list, add 46 to your list. Then apart from that, then now apply basic algebra, apply basic algebra on your list. So can we do this simple exercise? So that we know that we are all together and we are speaking the same language.
I see.
So I'll just ask one of you guys to present the this little exercise. Then we help each other from there.
So you want 46 to be part of our integers?
Sorry, 40. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. You need to append. So initially you're just creating your list with 5 integers. Then you use the append method to add 46 to your list, right?
Okay,
Then
clear now.
yes, then from there, maybe you take the first position, you add first position and the last position, you multiply third position against fourth position, just those simple algebra. Then maybe you divide the last position against the first position.
Okay, sure.
So I'll give you 10 minutes to do that exercise. Then you can just, anyone who is free to present can just present, then you can learn from there. Anyone facing some challenges? Anyone willing to volunteer to present the findings? Hello. Hi guys, are you still there?
We are here, sir. Almost done.
Oh, you're almost done. Okay, fine, cool. Anyone else? Okay. So Mr. Nis will present the findings to us, right? Any updates? Nis, are you prepared to take us through?
I'm getting a small syntax error that I'm trying to deal with.
Okay, maybe you can share, then we can start from there. It's still fine, no problem. So I'll allow you to share your screen.
Okay, so no worries. Let me share. Here is the little syntax that I'm getting.
So can you scroll up?
Then here I define my empty list as this is my list name, sport numbers. And I declared it as an integer because I'm going to be storing some integer values. Then here I added my integer values, which is 12, 34, 86, 42, 56. Then I appended 46. So trying to print numbers, I'm getting this syntax error. So,
All right. Oh, okay, fine, cool. So can you scroll up on your code? Do you guys see any issues why we are having those errors from the panel? Can someone identify the errors? Yeah, it seems like the panel is a little bit quiet. Mr. Blessed, Botho, Jeffrey, Madam Jamanta, Tinashe, Tersai, and Tariro. Are you guys there?
Yes, you are here.
Yes,
Okay.
we are, but I think we are behind.
Okay. All right, it's fine. So let me just work with Mr. Nis's code. All right. So initially the first error that we have when we are declaring an array, remember when you're declaring a list, always remember to put an equal sign. So on the first where you say numbers, there should be an equal sign just after the numbers. Yes, this now indicates this is now an empty list, number one. Then number two, on your line where numbers equals to integers. So whenever you're declaring a list, Python, it's intelligent that it will know which data type is this coming from. So you don't have to declare numbers equals to integers. So you have to remove that. Yes. Then also, can you try to print now? Sure, get something. Right. Then we have got numbers, dot append 1246. So what's happening there? Okay. So can you scroll up a bit? Okay. So on your print numbers, that's where we are getting an error. That one's supposed to be small letters. Python is very case sensitive. Not the numbers, the print, not the numbers. Number capital letter N, then the print should be small letters, and there is no space between print and variable. Yes, can you try now? Right, there we go. So so can you scroll up a little bit? So the way you have declared your numbers, if you put double quotes in Python, Python will recognize that as strings, not as numbers. So if you want to declare a number or you want to assign a number, you don't put the double quotes. If and only if it's text, then you are allowed, not even single quotes, numbers, just put plain numbers without any quotes. Yes. So that's how we declare the numbers. But if it was text, we have to put double quotes. Are we all together? So if you run that, now we can see that you've got a list of numbers. Yes. Now you can perform some basic algebra on those numbers. Like for example, let's say just add, maybe we're just adding two numbers. Maybe just try to add two numbers. So you're just saying print, you can just write print. We just want to see the result, print, open brackets. We are now adding the first, then you specify the variable. The variable is numbers, that's your variable. We want to print the first element of our list numbers. Can you print the first element of our list numbers? Remember, I always say that, okay, can you see the result? Yes. You see that the name numbers is not defined. What's the reason? What's the reason? Why numbers is not defined?
Is it because I put a small letter N?
Yes. Python is very case sensitive. So you need to make sure that if you are using, you need to be consistent with naming your variables. If it's the small letters, use small letters. If it's more than 2 words, I recommend you to use in underscore. So if you check now, the result is there, which is 12, right? So if you want to add, let's say we want to add 12 plus 46, now we just inside, then you just put a plus sign, then you specify the 46 one. A plus sign after, no, after that bracket, yes. Because the first one is just returning the value in that index. Then you specify again numbers, then the position of the value that you want. Let's see. Yes. So that's how you deal with. That's how you define a list. You append some numbers to the list. Then from there, you can do some basic algebra. From the other guys, do we have any questions on this one? So if anyone is lost or from whatever that you've discussed up to now, if you've got any questions or some little bit of clarification, can you just share with us so that we can help each other. Mr. Tinashe, are we all clear? And Miss Jamanda, are we all clear?
Yes, I'm following.
Okay, and okay, fine, cool, no problem. All right, so you guys, if you don't have any questions, now we can proceed. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so we've just covered some basic declarations, and now we are now diving deep into Python. So in Python, remember that I once said that Python, one of the most reasons why we chose Python is because it has got some inbuilt functions that we can use instead of rewriting um, the whole syntax. Python can easily do that for us, right? So if you check, we have got different math libraries. We have got all, in fact, a source of various libraries that you can use. Any of the standard formula or any math formula that you can think of, Python has got that formula that has already been predefined for us, right? So we have got a library called math, and this library is just a math package in Python, which will contain all standard mathematical formulas from log, expression, power, etc. You can apply all those sorts of formulas in Excel with just one line, rather than just defining the syntax that you calculate the log or the exponential of certain numbers. You just have to code that library, and if you code that library, everything that you want is already sorted. I understand with Mr. Chaka, you have used pandas, right? Is that correct?
No, sir. Not
Or
yet.
you didn't input any library? Okay, it's fine, no problem. All right. So this is how we import libraries in Python. You'll find that as we progress, it's not only the math library that we have. We have got different sorts of libraries that we can use in Python. But the standard syntax of importing a certain library is just import, then you call that library. There are some that are already defined. If that library is missing, if the library is missing from your environment, first you need to install that library. But there are standard libraries, whenever you install Python, they come with Python. But there are other libraries that we need to install manually in our environment. For example, if we check this one, we're just importing math. So we just say import math. So whenever we want to use a formula in this library, we have to reference it first, then we use the the function that we want that is embedded in this library. For example, we want to find the log of a certain number. Remember, we have defined our float variable on the top. Hopefully you guys are still following. Then now we want to see the float, the log for this thing. We want to see the log for this let me see. Okay, how we math Python. Let's add math Python. Okay, so as you can see that the math is not existing. So we need to add that library. So if you want to add that library, most of the libraries you use the pip install. You just write pip install math. Let's see if we have the correct syntax here. I don't know why I should just pick pip install. Remember that install math. Can't remember the correct syntax for this library. Okay, so there we go. So it's Python math. So the pip okay. Something here. This one should become by default. I'm not sure why it's failing to recognize that one. Okay, use Midweek. I think it's still fine. Okay, just a moment. Sorry, guys. Okay, all right. Now I see. Now it's fine. By default, we have the matplotlib. I think it's just in upgraded. I using older bit of a green. Okay, fine. They can also be included in the matplotlib. So basically, but if you have got a library that you want to use in Python, you use the pip install. If that library is not existing, if you just type from the Google, you can just look for how to install Python libraries, because most probably, but these ones are basic one. Install. Let me look for the link where we've got a list of libraries. If you have got a certain function that you're looking for, you can just use this user guide to install additional variables that you want to use in your case. But in most of the standard ones, they are already covered in the Python. Whenever that you install your Jupyter notebook or you run your Anaconda, most of the libraries they're included. Then we also have the matplotlib, which we use for plotting. This one is it's important. It's one of the most crucial libraries that we are going to use. It allows us to visualize our data. It allows us to visualize our data whenever that we have imported a certain CV, then we want to visualize that CV or CSV, or maybe having some basic understanding. Most probably you have to use the matplotlib, or you can use the pandas library. We'll use them in the future. So the matplotlib, it allows us to draw some certain graphs. This is just a basic 2D where we've got the X values and the Y values. These are just basic. -2 is to 4, etc. So in matplotlib, this is how you plot a certain graph with some defined variables. You can specify the X values and the Y values. Then using matplotlib, it can automatically plot your graph. Are we all together? Then so this one basically we'll use them in the future, in the next few minutes. Then remember that when you when we were describing the issue to write down our clients or to note down all the clients that have visited our shops, and we say that it's something that we are going to repeat every time the customer comes in, we need to log that customer. If the next customer comes, we also need to log that customer. So if you want to repeat code, if you want to repeat some certain steps in Python, we use what you call loops. Most probably in literally, I can safely say each and every programming language has got some loops. So these loops are used to repeat some certain actions or some certain code that you want to repeat over many times. So for example, if you see here, we have got the list that you have already defined, which is called fib, and it contains these integers. But we want to print, if we say print fib, it will give us the whole list. But what if in a case that we want to print each and every result on a separate line? So that's where we use the looping structure. So the loops is just repeating a certain task until a certain condition has been met. So the first basic loop that we have is called the while loop. While loop, we declare the condition for a loop to stop. Let's say, for example, you are running over a circle, or you're running in circles. The only way to stop is something that interrupts you. If nothing interrupts you, you always go round and round and round and round and round. That's what we call an infinite loop. So for a loop to be useful, it has to have a condition that will terminate that loop. Triple J's.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So in this case, our while loop, we have declared a variable called I. Then we have given it initial value of 0. That's initial variable initialization. Then we are saying while I is less than len in Python, it means the length. It gives us the length of the list. This keyword len, it gives us the length of the width and it. So while I is less than the length of the width, please can you print whatever that is in I? Triple J's. Then I is starting from 0. Remember that after you've printed I, can you also add 1 to the value that is contained in I? Triple J's.
Yes, Triple.
Okay. This one, yeah, you guys need to pay a little bit attention. Okay. So we are saying this, right? So what you are saying that initially, okay, let me also take out these. Okay. So initially we are saying print, we are saying print fib. This one, we are just printing our list, right? And if you notice that it's going to print it as just one line. What if we want to print each and every element of the list individually? We want to print each and every element of the list individually. So what we want is we just say print fib 0, right? Then print again fib 1, right? Till the list radius repair, and then from 1 we get to 2, we get to 3, right? Because if you check that, if these ones are now printing the individual value on each and every line. What if in a scenario that the length of our list is 200? Are we going to write print 200 times? It's going to be dead. That's when, because you are repeating the same process each and every time. So that's when the loops come into play. So for example, if say print len, then you specify fib. This should see, right? So len is just a keyword that we use in Python to print how long is our list. If you check our list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our list has got 6 elements. As long as the length of the list is such a shake up any condition here, we want to print everything in that list. Tripodes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So in this case, we are saying that, remember, we have used length to find the length of the list rate on it. So we know that our list is 6 on it. Then we have declared I to be 0, right? So it's going in this condition, I in the first iteration, I will be 0. So you say 0 is less than 6. That is correct, right? So if it's correct, can you please print I? And remember, in this case, I in the first place, it's 0, right? Dijo.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me do this. Let's see if this works. All right. All right. So if you check here, so what we want is to print I. Then after we've printed I, the value of I, and we want to print the fib on it. So if you check in the initial, initially I is 0, right? Then we say 0 is less than the length of the fib is 6. Yes, it's less than 6. So print I, then dopata printer this 0. And then per I, panap I, it's I contains the value of 0. So in this case, we are printing position 0, which is the first position, right? And inner 1. Do you see that?
Yes, following.
Yes. Then, and after that, we compute this. We are now incrementing the value of I is 0. Now we are saying 0 plus 1. Now I is 1. Then we repeat the process. In the second iteration, I is now 1. We have printed 1 here. That's the value of I. And we are not going to print I is 1. We are not going to print anything that is on fib 1, which is 1. Then this we increment again. I is 1 plus 1, then become I became 2. Then we are going to print whatever that is on 2, right? This is the value on 2, which is 2. Are we all seeing this? Then we increment again. We have got the value of 4. When I is 4, what's the position? When I is 4, what's the value? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The value is 5. Then we print 5. When I is 5, then we print 8. Do you have any questions on the loop? How we loop values in? In Python. Okay. Because this is the first for loops. We also have the for loop and do while loop. Using the while loop, do we have any questions?
My network was slow, So maybe I'll follow because I'm lost to say the truth.
Okay, fine. All right, so no problem. So now you're back. Let me just explain the for loop. Then I'll tell you the difference because they use the same concept, but it's just one and
Okay.
the same thing. Okay. So for loop, we are just, you remember that we said that the loops, we are just using them to iterate something that we know. But for that loop to be a very perfect loop, for a valid loop, it has to have a condition that will terminate it at the end. Triple test. A certain condition has to be met so that the loop can be altered and it or can be stopped. If we don't have a condition that will stop that loop, it means that we are going to have an infinite loop where it's going to be executed forever. And in real life, we don't want that scenario. And so we're saying we have defined our list, which is fib, and then we want to print all the values of fib, each value to be printed on a single line, right? So we have declared our I as a variable. It's just a variable. I equals to 0, right? So we also have range. Remember, range from just basic English is just a certain, we define a certain perimeter or a certain area, and we just say this is our range. So in Python, we are saying that range function uses the minimum, we can say delimitation or something. Then we have got the minimum and the maximum. And we say that length is the shortcut for finding the length of the list. Right? So we are saying that we have got 0 and the length of fib is C, it's 6. So in the range from 0 up to 6, can you repeat this process? Murubabat.
Follow.
Okay, right? So you see that the first result, we've got 1, 1, 2, 3, 3 going downwards. Why? Because range, it automatically increments itself. We are saying that if I initially it's 0, up to the length of 6, print everything that is that. So this I is now dynamic. Remember, whenever potential printer the anything in that list, we're saying print fib 0 indicating the index, print fib 2 indicating the index. But now in this case, the index is no longer static, it's dynamic. Every time our program loops, it's changing the values automatically rather than us specifying 2, 3, 4, and 5. But it has to do that automatically. That's why we implement those loops. Imagine a scenario that you have got 200 items in your list and you want to print them, each item on a single line. Should we write print from index 0 up to 200? Then it means that you are going to have 200 lines. The first one 0, the second one 1, 2, up to 200. Is going to be tiresome, but we are just repeating one the same thing. That's when we use loops. So this is an example of a dynamic loop. So we're just saying good for I in the range. We are saying I is, and if I is still in this range, can you please do this? You only stop when I is not in that range. Triple test. My
Yes, sir.
much better condition chekuti, we only stop when I is not in that range. As long as I is in that range, can you please do this? So the condition for stopping is when I is out of that range. That's when we stop. As long as I is in that range, we are going to repeat the same process until I is out of range. So when I is out of range, it's when this value of I is now greater than 6, or it's greater than or equal to 6. That's when I is out of range. Then it will stop. Triple test. Is the same way as this one. We just declared E and it. For E in fib, print E and it is just a neater way of doing it, or a smart way of doing it. We're just saying, okay, our Python understood that this is a list and it's got some index. And what we've done is that we are now passing E is now representing our index. So whenever we run the first time, it will increment our E as an index. So it's going to print everything in this list, but these things are going to be printed on a single, each on a single line. Ameno kana muruku ndinzwa on that one.
So I have a question.
You can shoot.
So yeah, the letter E, Tabui says now different.
Yes. So remember, like I said, that Python makes our life easier, and it's very easy to understand, right? So if you declare your function like this, you have to see, okay, I'm looking for things in this list. You get the sense? Rather than declaring this is another way that we can do. And the E, it's not only that you can use H here. You can use any letter that you want, right?
Yes.
See, you can use any letter that you want, but as long as you have defined your syntax like this, it now knows, okay, fine, this is a list. My task is to look this list and print each and every item on a separate line rather than just everything on a single line.
Fine.
Are we all together?
Yes, understood.
Okay. So basically, these are the Python basics that we are going to use whenever we are developing models. Do you guys have any questions on these ones? Vani mibvunzo. Hello, do you have any questions? Tese tanzwisisa era kusvika patasvika now. Hello.
For my side, everything is good, sir.
Okay. From the other team members, do you have any questions? Tariro and Obey have been quiet, and also Mr. Tinashe is always typing. Do you have any questions? Mr. Tinashe, Obey, Tariro, and Charisai?
No questions, sir.
Okay.
No questions, sir. I just follow.
Okay, so should we continue? Or you need
Yeah,
some
we
time
can
to,
continue.
we can continue. Or you need some time to digest
Yes.
this. Okay, fine. So
We can
basically,
continue.
okay. So basically, these were the just basics. Now, the main reason for this course is for us to able to apply artificial intelligence using Python in our daily lives or in our business cases. Okay, so let me compare. Start with this one. So you guys, I'll share with you this data set. Then you can do some predictions. All right. So the major thing is that we should be able to predict. Let's say, for example, we are in a business. Let's say, for example, we are facing a decline in our customers. Maybe our customers are running away from our business in per se, or we are facing high customer chain out. So we need to predict which customers are likely to leave us. Because if, as a business, if we lose a certain customer, then it means that our revenue is also going to negative side. Because the moment you lose a certain customer that was bringing a certain cent, if you don't receive that cent from that customer, then it now becomes a problem. So as a business, we should be able to make sure that if a certain customer is not happy or is likely to leave us, we need to offer him something, maybe some promotions or anything that makes the customer feel at home once again, rather than to lose that customer. So artificial intelligence can help us to identify those type of customers. In that case, maybe, for example, in this case, it was a certain project that I did for Siemens. It was more of like a prototype to Siemens. You all know Siemens is a medical aid society. What their revenue is driven, as long as someone pays the subscription, then they are in it, right? So it's just a model that we identified. We just prototyped with you guys. If you provide us with this type of data, we can work with this data and we can identify the customers that you guys are going to lose. So if they lose that customer, and then it means that it's not going to pay a certain subscription, and that subscription contributes to our performance, to our revenue, to our stability of our company. So it's our duty to make sure that we retain each and every customer that we have, and we also acquire new customers. So most probably in most of the business, they are concerned with acquiring new customers rather than keeping the customers happy, the current customers they have happy. I don't know if I'm correct, but that's what I believe. As long as someone say, oh, okay, this is my loyal customer, they can take advantage of that person and they put more focus on getting new customers. But the moment that that loyal customer leaves, it becomes a problem. So we need to make sure that as much as we can recruit more customers, we need to make sure that we are also keeping our current customers happy. Is that correct?
Very true, sir.
Okay, so Python can help us. In fact, artificial intelligence can help us, but the major key, whenever you're developing some prediction modules, you need to make sure that your data is correct. You need to make sure that your data is clean. Someone once quoted that developing a prediction model, it takes me 10% of my time. The 90% comes from cleaning the data itself. So that's the major thing. Cleaning and understanding your data are very crucial. So like I said, that we have got different libraries that we can use in Python. So this is how we import the libraries. The matplotlib, we have talked about it. Then we have got the pandas and the numpy. All these libraries have got different functions that we can use to make sure that we understand our data, we have cleaned our data, etc. Right? Then also you have got the Seaborn library. The Seaborn library, it helps in aid of visualizing the data that we have. So the major steps after the first thing that you need to do is to understand your data. After understanding your data, visualize your data to enhance your understanding of the data. There are so many, if there are outliers, okay, you check for outliers, you remove the outliers. If there are some missing values, you check for those missing values. You check for the data, the quality itself before you develop a model. Remember, there's a saying goes like garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you input data into your model, you're going to have wrong results. So make sure that whenever you are analyzing, you have to clean your data first. I've repeated this more than I don't know, but those are the most important things. Clean your data first, understand your data. Then from there, you can build a model that you know this can perform or this can give you the true position of the prediction. All right, so if you want to use any library, this is how you import the libraries. Then if one of these libraries, they come as standard libraries in Python. If you require additional libraries, you can use that pip install, right? Okay, so usually in a business environment, we get data in form of CSVs, Excel, etc. I don't know if you guys, any one of you work with databases or work with Excel or CSV files. Do you have anyone who has worked with large datasets? Hello?
Yes, we work with large data sets.
Okay, they'll be in what format?
Excel, sometimes CSV.
Okay. Wow, lovely. So we can deal with CSV. So if you want to read a CSV in Python, this is how we do it. We use a certain library called pandas. If you check from here, I've defined my pandas as PD. So this library will allow me to read any CSV file as it is on Excel, right, into Python. So you just say, okay, this is a variable. You have talked about variables, remember, right? And we say that we have got different types of data set a certain variable can hold. Indeed. So we have defined our variable called data, and this data is stored this CSV. So if whenever we read a CSV into a certain variable, we now call it a data frame. We now call it a data frame. So you find some of the codes will be written like df equals to pd read CSV. Then it specifies the path of the CSV. Then after we've read our CSV, now we need to understand, or we need to know how our CSV looks like in Python. So we say just a data.head, then we limit up to 30 records. You can put any figure that you want. You can put 3, you can put 10, etc. Right? All okay, my CSV is not existing. All right, project downloads. And where I put the data. fine. I'll be able to try to use this one. This. Yeah, fine, cool. Sorry guys for the CMAS one. I can't remember where I put the subsetting files, but it's still the same concept. So for this one, it was one of the projects that I did. It was an e-commerce project. So what they wanted to find out, it was more of like the Zend. It's an e-commerce and financial service app with more than 10,000 customers in Uganda. So what they wanted is to identify some fraudulent transactions. If a certain user performs a transaction, then we can classify it as this is not fraudulent and this is fraud. Why? There are various attributes that we'll be taking a look into. Guys, can you still see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, fine. All right, so basically, before we dive deep into predicting ETC, like I said, you need to understand from the business perspective, what the business want to achieve, what are the objectives. Then from there, you need to understand the data itself. What is it telling, right? So in this case, this is a certain company that processes airtime transactions, maybe like, for example, if you're using a MasterCard, it's kind of that platform. All right, for example, it's in simple terms, it's just like MasterCard. And in MasterCard, we perform various transactions, buying from various sites. But there are some fraudulent activities that will occur during that process. So this company wants to identify if that is one of their customers is doing a fraudulent transaction, he maybe has lost his MasterCard, then you want to purchase Munanonga, that MasterCard want to purchase from a different site. The MasterCard company should be able to identify, oh, I think this is a fraudulent transaction. Then it raises some red flags. It's also part of their business. So that was the business case to identify those transactions that are fraudulent. Okay. So we have imported various libraries, and from here we have okay, fine, we have got our training CSV. A training CSV, remember that artificial intelligence, we are just mimicking what a human brain can do. We are more of trying to replace the human brain. So if a human brain can pick, okay, fine, from all these attributes of this transaction, this is a fraudulent transaction, then we can tick it as fraud. From all these attributes of this transaction, this is a legit transaction, we can tick it as a legit transaction. Or there are some transactions that users complain with, no, I've been scammed. Someone, I've lost my card and someone is transacted to 1, 2, 3, ABCD. Then we can pick it as fraudulent. Now, the next task, now we have got the data set that contains of legit transactions and fraudulent transactions. Now we need to develop a program that will train. If a transaction contains some set of attributes like this, you should flag it as fraudulent for this customer. If a transaction contains some certain attributes like this is a legit transaction. So if one of the customers maybe in the future has lost his or her card, then the same attributes that you have flagged as fraudulent in 2018 appear on that person as is almost close or similar to that. We should hold that transaction and get the confirmation from the user. Are you the one trying to do 1, 2, 3 things? Then the user confirms, then we can proceed. Because the transaction is matched one of the fraudulent transactions that happened maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. Are you getting the sense? Why is it so important for us to use artificial intelligence in our business? Do I
Yes,
have
sir.
people in the house? Okay. All right, fine. So basically, that's what we're trying to do. We are just say, okay, fine. Humans is said, okay, this is not correct, this is right. But humans cannot be there while someone is processing a transaction online. They only see the after effect. So for us to cater for that, we need to develop something that will mimic human brains. Whenever someone is processing a transaction, it's already capturing the data and analyzing the data instantly. Before approval, it will give you, okay, it will give you a green light or it will decline the transaction. That's how powerful artificial intelligence it is in our business. This is just a case scenario that we have worked with before. Okay, fine. We have so we say that we have got different libraries that we're going to use. The first one is Pandas, that allows us to read a certain CSV, and the head function, it allows us to view the CSV file as we do while opening using Microsoft Excel. So we've got the transaction ID, the page ID, the account ID, subscription ID, customer ID, the currency, the country code, the provider, etc., the product category, financial services, airtime, utilities bill, the channel, the amount, the value, transaction time, the strategy, and etc. Then the last column, we have got the fraud result. Okay, you guys might say, whenever you're capturing business transaction, we don't have the fraud result. This data set has already been cleaned at some point. Do you get the sense? But in your case, you have your transactions, you have to add additional columns for it to make sense. For not to okay, a fake bill, then you have to flag it one. You have to flag it because in this case, it's more of like we're just saying if it's not a fraudulent transaction, it contains a 0. If it's a fraudulent transaction, it has to contain 1. Report is added. So in this case, we are just reading the CSV and make sure that you understand all these headings. What do they mean in your business perspective? And how do they add value to whatever that you're analyzing, right? I'll take you, for example, in Uganda, and it maybe their currency is different from us. That's 100% correct. But maybe someone cannot buy an airtime that is worth 100,000. But us as Zimbabweans, with this current state, we can buy airtime that is close to 100,000 in businesses, or maybe even more than that, because maybe it's just equivalent to 10 or 20, whatever, $30, etc., right? So we can buy airtime, which is good, more value of that. But if someone purchases an airtime of maybe 5 million, then we should raise some questions. So these country codes and country code and the currency code, they add value to our understanding of the data itself if we are in that country. But the same company for MasterCard, you say, okay, I'm in Zimbabwe, I can buy an ATM of 100 USD. That's normal. But maybe in another country, if you buy ATM of 200,000, it should raise a red flag as compared to Zimbabwe. Those things, they are different. So you should be able to clean your data and understand your data and know what you want to predict. Because literally, you're just feeding the machine with the data that you know the results. Okay, if this scenario is like this is correct. If scenario like this is wrong. right? So if I give you 1, 2, 3, are you able to tell me if this scenario is correct or wrong based on what I have trained you to do? Do you get the sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So in this case, we are just saying, okay, we have read our CSV, then we have understood our data. Maybe another form of understanding our data, you need to know the data shape. How many columns do you have? How many rows do you have? Right? So this is the code to show, it shows you number of rows that you have in that data set, because you can't display them 95,000 rows in that on just single sheet. But you can, okay, fine, I've got 95,000 rows with 16 columns. You are just trying to understand how big is your data set. Yes. Then, is there any values that are now? So we are just saying, okay, data. Remember, this data is the same variable that we have loaded our CSV into this variable called data. So we are now referencing this data as our CSV. So is just checking.
Extend the lecture.
You guys seem tired. It's okay. I can take a break. Okay. Some of the members are complaining. So I think you pause it for now, then we'll continue some other time. Is that correct?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, so I'll share a certain assignment with Ms. Chaka so that to confirm that we are all in sync. So I'll share some certain questions. So whenever I'm going to present next time, we just start by recapping what you've learned so that we make sure that everyone is on the same page.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, beautiful guys. You have a lovely night and you have a good night. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.